Okay, today we're going to be making this beautiful black walnut mantle. I hope you enjoyed the video and let's get into it.
All right, so this mantle is going to be 68 and a half final dimensions. And these boards, this board is about 6 1/4 by probably about by 9 feet. I'm cutting it down to 68, and then I'm going to get that other half inch, um, probably more than a half inch because I'm going to have to cut the ends on this to square them. But it's getting a wrap, so I'm going to make up the difference with the wrap.
And by wrap, I mean this mantle is going to get boxed out so that it looks thicker than it actually is. If you don't get it, it'll make sense once you start seeing it go together. So I'm going to get all of my boards rough cut so then I can get them stickered and they can acclimate to the relative humidity in my shop.
Okay, so all of my boards are rough cut and stickered, and we're just going to let them sit there for a couple of days. Alright, so this board is a bit of a hockey stick, but I'm just going to straighten it out with the track saw and then cut it to width with the table saw. Wow, that is really bowed. It's got to be out good half inch, 5/8 of an inch from the center to each end.
Okay, so I'm just going to use the track saw here to put one straight edge on this board, and then I'll be able to run it through the table saw.
Alright, then we'll just run the other half, or not the other half, we'll run the other side through the table saw.
So once you put the one straight edge on there with the track saw, then you can cut a parallel side with the table saw. So I didn't have any rollers set up, and there goes my dust collection. So no rollers set up, so I'm cutting this board about halfway through, and then I'm going to stop the saw, pick it up, flip it around, and cut it the other way. Probably should have set the rollers up, but I guess I was feeling a little lazy. And clearly I didn't notice that the dust collection fell off, so I'm sure there was a nice mess to clean up after this was done. So you may notice in this shot that the stickered lumber is, I believe it was 6/4. It could have been 8/4, but I think it was 6/4. And the piece I'm ripping is 3/4. And this piece is going to be used on the bottom, so you're not going to see the thickness because the sides and the front are going to cover that edge. And I guess also you're not going to see the thickness of the top either, but if you were to knock on the top, you'd be able to hear that it's a thin piece of wood. So that's why I'm using the thicker boards on the top. And here I'm just putting my dominoes in because the three pieces that are going to make up the top, I'm going to domino them together to keep it all nice and even. All right, so the way that I'm going to do this glue up is it's three boards. So the center board here, I drilled the dominoes on the tight mode, and then the two boards that are going to get attached to it, I did those on the medium mode. This way I have some wiggle room laterally in case they're not perfectly lined up. And I'm just going to glue the two pieces together at first. I have all three boards in the clamps just because the smallest clamps I have are 2 feet. So I'm just going to lay all three boards in there. I'm going to glue the two up, clamp it together, let it set, and then I'm going to glue the other one on after that sets. This way I'm not stressed out with having to get this whole thing together all at once in case something doesn't go right. All right, so we'll get this tight enough to get a little squeeze out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a couple of cauls across the top of it just to keep it all nice and plain. And I'll also throw some clamps over the top of it just so I have some even clamping pressure from the bottom and the top as well. Alright, so I let that set up for a couple hours. I'm going to pull the clamps off, spread it back open, and then I'm going to glue that third plank back on. So it'll be the same process again. I'll glue it, I'll clamp it, I'll put the cauls back on, and then I'm probably going to let it sit overnight this time. Okay, while that glue up dries, I'm going to start thickness planing the wrap. So these are the boards that are going to go on the front of the mantle and the sides of the mantle to make the mantle to make the mantle look like it's 4 inches thick. And the reason why I'm running them through the thickness planer is to get them all the same thickness, about 1.5 inches. So the tabletop is out of, or the mantle top is out of glue up. It's so big it looks like a table. It would actually make a nice desk, I think. But anyway, it was out of glue. I was card scraping some of the glue off, and now I'm just using the router sled to even it all out. So normally I would like to run this with the grain long ways, but the piece of MDF that I have sitting on top of my table isn't as long as the mantle. It's a little short, so what I had to do is just go across the grain on the first foot there, then slide the table down, and now I'm going long ways with the grain, which I feel works much better. So once I had it all evened out, I'm gonna cut it to the final dimensions now with the track saw. So I got the one straight edge on the front of it. Now I'm just gonna square off that straight edge to trim down the sides. So once I get these sides trimmed, I'm going to be about 3 inches short on my length and 1.5 inches short on the width. But when I put that wrap on, it's going to make up the 3 inches on the sides and then the 1.5 inches on the front. So I'm just cutting the other side here with the track saw. And now I'm all trimmed up and square. And we're going to start on the wrap. So again, the wrap is 4 inches. I'm going to cut a 45 on it, and I'm going to bring it over to the mantle, and I'm going to place it where it needs to go, and then I'm going to mark for the other 45. I like doing the relative measurements. It's a little trickier to do it with the rule. Sometimes the rule doesn't, especially on a long piece, it's hard to get it held in the right place. So unfortunately, my 10-inch chop saw doesn't make it all the way through. It hits the armature, so I had to finish it up with the pull saw. So here I'm just marking it or holding it where it needs to go. I'm going to mark the other end, cut the other 45 on. Like I said, on a long piece like this, it's just hard to get an accurate reading with the tape measure, so it's easier just to hold the piece up and mark it. So I think this time, because my chop saw won't cut it on edge, I'm going to try cutting it on the flat, but I had the same issue. The motor hit the board and I couldn't get all the way through, so I just finished it up with the chop saw. And now I just have a 90-degree clamping block there just to hold my pieces where they need to go. It just makes it a little bit easier so they're not floating around. And once I get both sides glued, I'm actually just going to use the pin nailer as a clamp. The pin nails are so small you can't really see them. I know some of you are going to think it's blasphemy to put a pin nail in walnut furniture, but it's a mantle, you're not going to see it, so it worked for me. Also, if you feel like you're getting some value out of these videos, feel free to hit that like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and it helps spread the video around, so thanks for that. Alright, so again, I'm just going to pin nail this. I know I'm going to get comments saying you shouldn't be pin nailing walnut, but like I said, you can't really see it, and this is just the mantle. So another thing you might have noticed is that I'm not 45ing the top edge of this wrap to the mantle top. Now normally I would do this so that it does in fact look like one piece of wood. If you look at this from the top down, you'll be able to see that it's wrapped with this 1x4 material. But this is going to be a high mounted mantle, so you're not really going to see it from the top down. And because of that, the client felt that it was a good cost savings to just wrap it like this instead of the extra work to put in that 45 on the top edge. So here I'm just setting it in. I got some blocks to keep it at my height. That this piece is really heavy. Like I said, this mantle is desk size, 20 inches by whatever it was, 64, 68 inches. It's a big mantle top. So again, I'm just setting it on some blocks. The glue is already on there. And once I get it in, I'm just gonna clamp it up. And the only thing left is we actually have to wrap the bottom with a 4-inch piece too, so that you can't see underneath. And there's also going to be some support structure in there. So I've been getting a lot of questions about cost lately, both in the comments and both from people I talk to when I tell them what I do. So I thought this was a good project to talk about cost because it's a pretty simple project. It's pretty straightforward, so it was a little easier to price than, a more complicated piece of furniture. So I guess we'll talk about that for a bit while we clamp this up. So this black walnut is about $16 a board foot. And a board foot is 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch thick is a board foot. So if it was 2 inches thick, if it was 8/4, it would be twice the price for the same 1 foot by 1 foot, because now it'd be 2 inches instead of 1 inch thick. So this mantle was about 30 board feet at $16 or so a board foot, and so that comes out to about $500 with tax. So materials were $500. Now this took me about 20 hours to make it, with milling all the wood, jointing it, gluing it, dominoing it, finishing it, 20 hours. And for something straightforward like this, my rate was $50 an hour. So that is $1,000 in labor for this. So the total price was $1,500, and then I added on a little bit more for delivery and installation. So, something simple like this, $50 an hour. A more complicated piece of furniture, with angles and joinery, you may be up to $100 an hour for the labor. So, basically my pricing is usually in that range, just so you guys have an idea. And it's kind of funny because some of my friends that see how much work goes into some of these pieces think I should be charging more. And then, I don't have a lot of overhead. I do it all in my garage, and it's just me. So I feel my prices are fair, but then I have some items listed in an online store, and sometimes I get comments there saying that the prices are outrageous. So, it's hard to please everybody. I think my pricing is fair. There's a lot of work that goes into custom furniture. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys an idea of how I do my pricing. So I hope that helps you out. So back to the video here. So this is the underside now. And this is that other 4-inch piece that's getting added on so that you can't see from underneath. And then those supports are going to sit on top of a box that's built out for this fireplace already. And then the face of the fireplace and the top of the fireplace and the sides are going to get stone. So the stone is going to butt up to those 4-inch wraps underneath. So you won't need any trim. You're not going to be able to see from under the mantle to on the surface that it's mating to, because the stone is going to finish it. I hope you can visualize that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get pictures at the client's house because they're still being worked on. I may get some down the road, and if I do, I'll post them. But this is another one of those pieces where I don't have pictures of it installed. But here's the finish going on. This is tried and true finish. It's another oil wax based finish. I like the way this looks. It has a nice sheen to it, so I'm gonna do the whole mantle in it. And you can see the colors really popping. Every time I work with walnut, I am reminded of how beautiful it is. You know, sometimes you get sick of working with the same wood, but when you start working with it again, you know, you see the beauty in the wood, and it's satisfying. So I think it looks great. Again, I wish I had pictures of it installed. Maybe I'll get them and I'll append them to this video, but this is it. So thank you for watching, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.